I am Jay Stevens, a finance nerd who has used technology to improve financial processes for corporations for the past 15 years. You are ready to take control of your financial future so that you too can say, I am rich like my melanin.
Happy Earth Day, everyone. I am Jay Stevens, the host of Rich Like My Melanin, formerly known as My Wealth Journey, LLC. And we are back with another episode of Everybody Knows Somebody Who Knows Somebody Who Knows Something About It, the series where I introduce you to really cool entrepreneurs and creatives who can inspire you to start your own side hustle. So today we are going to put the green in going green as we explore a special Earth Day episode with Laura of Rich and Resilient Living. Laura is a green living and money coach who teaches reluctant capitalists how to cultivate true wealth and financial resilience on a climate challenged planet. She has been featured in Forbes, Good Housekeeping, CNBC, All Star Money, and more. And she joins us today to teach us how to be more sustainable and financially savvy as consumers. So let's get started. Hi, Laura. Welcome to the channel.
Hello,
Welcome.
Jay. Thank,
Thank you for joining
thank
us
you for
today.
having me.
I'm so excited you're here. Okay, so the first question people want to know, how did you get started? Like, how did you get into this?
Well, I really came to this crossroads of thinking about money and sustainable living, sustainability about 15 years ago. And at that time, there were three things that intersected in my life that I discovered. One was the concept of lifestyle design that was introduced to me through Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, that a lot of people know. The next was the FIRE community, or FIRE being financial independence, retire early, and then something else that's called permaculture. And permaculture is an ecological design toolkit that, one way I've heard it described that I like is that it's a holistic approach to meeting the needs of people and nature at the same time. And so those were three very powerful things for me, and I liked all of them, and I didn't want them to be mutually exclusive. So many people that are on the path to FIRE are investing in the stock market and in, real estate empires that are promoting issues and I guess just exacerbating social and environmental issues that exist already. So I wanted to use lifestyle design as a tool to achieve financial independence, or what I call financial resilience, along with permaculture, in a way that wasn't going to be negating the very future for which I was preparing through the investing I was doing and the financial moves I was making. And so after I discovered those three things, I really started learning a lot more about permaculture, and to the extent that people know about permaculture, they think it's mostly applied in our landscapes. And that certainly is true. There are a lot of amazing things we can do in our yards and our gardens and our landscapes in general with permaculture, but it's also a very rich design toolkit for the finance and economics and just, these invisible structures in our lives. And so I started delving into what permaculture had to offer about how do we achieve, financial independence, financial resilience in our lives using the tools in that toolkit.
That is cool. So it was like an overall growth moment of we couldn't have the 4-hour work week, so let's be more productive. But in our productivity, how can we retire early? The FIRE movement, and not just retire early because we're throwing money at whatever will make money, but make money and make an impact. I like it. It's a whole, and not holistic as in like kumbaya holistic, but whole as in like you looked over all of the pictures and the pieces in the picture to say, how can I achieve more than just one goal? And I definitely support, I would say it's like social impact investing, or like investing and using your time and using your money to make a statement towards what you support. So the same way some say, tongue tied, the same way that some people will boycott a company if they don't like For example, I remember, this is a throwback episode, but Apple had factories that had children in them, and people wanted to boycott the child labor laws in foreign countries, so they stopped buying Apple products. And this was at the beginning, I think, of like when iPhones were just starting to come out and become more common, not just like for the super uber rich. And to the idea of, I can use my money, I can use my time to make a statement and to make a difference. So I love it. I like that. Okay, so the next question is for the people who have bought into it. So they heard your first question and they said, you know what? She's right. I want to make a difference. I want to be more sustainable. But where do I start? Like, what are some things I can do if I'm not ready to, completely go off the grid and grow my own vegetables and do everything I can to make sure that I'm being a better person, a better community member in this world? What are some of the simple steps that people can start? And the basics that, like, cut off the lights when you're not in the room. That'll lower your electric bill, but also just like make a difference. What are some other simple things that consumers can do to help not only just save money, but have a better impact on the environment?
Well, I think one thing, an easy place for people to start that's pretty low hanging fruit, is to think about where they bank. And I mean, this is because so many of the major banks are using their money to fund the fossil fuels industry. So even if you've divested from fossil fuels, your money, if it's at any of the major banks, is still supporting that industry. So, it's a very powerful way to take your money and put it to work for good by maybe getting it into a local credit union where it's going to support your local community more, or get it into a Black-owned bank. Let's get money to places where it hasn't really resided. And money is such a form of power. And I say Black-owned banks, and that's a social justice issue, but to my mind, social justice is a big part of climate justice. So they're very interwoven. So consider doing something like that, just looking at where you're banking, and think about moving to a more climate friendly option, even just if it's not directly climate friendly. That would be one powerful thing people could do. And you used I can't remember exactly what your expression was, but as you led me into this question, it was about helping consumers. And I really think that as consumers, a big thing we can do is consume less. There's just this hyper focus on consumption, and we are now more looked at by our government as consumers than we are citizens. Our government leaders refer to us and they look at the indicators and the statistics around us being consumers, and our emphasis on consumption has taken us away from our role as citizens, activists, paying attention to city council meetings, what's going on locally. We're so busy shopping and keeping up with the Joneses and buying on and staying on that hamster wheel of earn and spend so we can consume, that we've been robbed of our role as citizens. I mean, we've gone along for the most part, but because it's just everything around us is pushing us towards consumption, as opposed to being citizens, being involved in our communities, asking a neighbor to borrow something instead of buying it. Really developing community and resilience right where you are. And, when you mentioned my bio, I really think about how can we be resilient in the midst of climate change. And to the ultimate form of wealth is our community, our social capital, the connections we have to our networks, our family, our friends. It's money is just digits in the computer, and it could just God, heaven forbid, but it could potentially disappear someday, even temporarily. So it's the social capital, it's our skills. These are the things that are the tangible, really important forms of wealth and capital in our lives. And when we stray too far into consumer land, we lose that.
There are so many things you you hit on that I'm just like, oh, I want to dive deeper. So the fact of, knowing what your bank is doing, I completely agree with that. And beyond just where they are spending their money and what they're doing with your funds that you give, whether you have an investment account, a savings account, but also being aware of how they are charging you to use your money to do things they want to do. So a lot of the smaller credit unions, they will have higher interest rates for your saving accounts. They will have less fees for what you're doing, whatever you need to do, like transaction fees. And these are small things that make a difference in your livelihood. And you're completely right in the fact that social impact and community impact, and the fact that people are seen more and more as the money, the power they can give, as opposed to the community they can build. I completely agree with the idea that there has been a change in politics and just in general, like you said, it's not as though we weren't complicit and aware of this change, but the fact that we are a data point at times, like as consumers, we are a data point of this is what this person is most likely to spend money on. This is what this person is most likely to do with that money, based on your background, your education, your demographic, all of that. And the fact that we should just leave that hanging and say, oh, well, like it is what it is, but be more civically involved and socially involved. I also like the idea of knowing your neighbors and being able to ask, and this doesn't always happen. I live in a bigger city. And I do know some of my neighbors, and we even have each other's contact information. But I realize when you're kind of when people live further out, it seems like it's especially in the suburbs. You get to know your neighbors, and it becomes okay and it becomes comfortable to say, instead of going on Amazon, and it's nothing, I'm not trying to take a dig at Amazon, although it's Amazon. But instead of going on Amazon to like order a shovel when I see it's about to snow to shovel up my yard, is there a system we have in this neighborhood? And do we have some sort of way to make sure that we can support each other? I really do like the idea of that and that community building. And it's cool. It's even beyond like the dollars and cents of it. It's just good for your mental and emotional well-being to have that sense of community and those social skills. So I like that. Thank you for sharing that. And our last question is, there's a lot of information out there in the world, and it started with, we had Ask Jeeves and Yahoo back in the day. We have Google and anybody who is able to open up one of their social media accounts and just post stuff. So there can be a lot of misinformation out there about different topics. What, if any, information are you like, oh, you cringe when you see it, when it comes to this topic of being a rich and resilient, service-oriented, community-oriented consumer? So what are some common misunderstandings, and what do you want people to know? Like, what should be the right thing to know about this topic?
I think that we need to redefine rich and what a wealthy life looks like. We get sold this image of yachts and private jets and big homes. And if we really stop to think about it, and we can look at the research, it shows that what people truly want is not the money. It's not the, all of those fancy excessive items. I mean, certainly a baseline of money for general security and well-being is necessary, but beyond that, it's time autonomy. It's the autonomy to be able to make the decision about how we spend our time and who we spend it with, what we're going to do and focus on. That is a truly wealthy life, to surround ourselves with the people we want to be with, to spend our time doing the things we want to do. And this whole notion of, what is rich, I think it's so distorted because it takes us away from what we truly want. And so I always encourage people to take the time to really think about, what does a wealthy life look like to you? What do you want to fill your days with? What are the activities that light you up that you'd like to do? Who do you want to interact with on a regular basis? What does your ideal living situation look like? Is it urban? Is it suburban? Is it rural? Are you living alone? Are you living with, a husband or a spouse and children? Are you living in an intentional community with other people? Are you in an apartment that has no maintenance? But really get clear on what it is a wealthy life looks like to you, and put aside everything else, and then start designing your life towards that, towards your vision of a wealthy life, and make your decisions according to what's going to take you toward that. This whole idea that, I talked about consuming less is deprivation. It's such a misguided way of thinking, and to my mind, because really, when you stop consuming less, you have more time and more space. You go out and you meet the neighbors, you build the community. You talked about it a little bit yourself when you responded to what I said. It gives you the opportunity to tap your creativity and resourcefulness, your imagination, these things that capitalism just pushes aside.
When I tell you, I was like, yes, yes, that you're dropping gems. So yeah, so okay. The idea that there's this standard of like what wealthy looks like. And yes, there is a standard of, if you make this much above the poverty line, if you have this type of income, that is wealth. And that's great for those who can obtain it, and attain it. But you are right in that you're spot on. I was like, ooh, she got hit it on the nose. That people really want the freedom to be able to do what they want to do, that autonomy, that time autonomy you spoke of. And most of the times it's not include going to work. Like, you might love what you do and you want to do it, but you still want time to just not have to think about work. And that is kind of what is supposed to be the undertone of reaching a certain level of wealth. Like, oh, I can travel the world and I can be on all these yachts and I can afford to go on this luxury shopping trip and eat these wonderful meals. And that's lovely. Like, it's nothing wrong. I call it the rich auntie life, the life of leisure. It's nothing wrong with saying, I want that lifestyle. But understand, is that the only option? Like, what all does that entail? Because my experience, I had a great career that was setting me up for that. And it looked wonderful to be able to say, oh, I'm going to have multiple homes and my family will go on vacations around the world and all of this. But behind the scenes, I was sacrificing so much to get to that point, and so much of my peace and my happiness and my free time, to the point that even if I knew I had a vacation coming, I knew it really wasn't a vacation. I knew it meant I could afford to go somewhere with my loved ones and I would get a nice hotel room so that I could have somewhere to sit and work. And that maybe one day out of like that 7-day vacation, I could completely turn off my computer and go enjoy myself. But that still meant that as soon as we got back from dinner or whatever that day, I needed to go back and catch up on everything. And for me, that wasn't worth it. It was this awareness of, it looks like it's great to have all of this and to be able to, look like you've reached some level of success, but at what cost? And for me, it became a lot more important to be able to have freedom in my schedule, to have peace, to not be stressed out. Because I was like, I'm losing hair, I'm getting gray hairs, I'm just exhausted. And then I was gaining weight because I just didn't have time to work out or to eat healthy. Like, everything had to be a prepackaged service. So I completely agree. Now that I'm on the other side of that experience, I agree with stepping away from what is in the glossy images and what's on social media of what is wealth and success, and defining that for yourself. And then understanding that your trajectory towards that, there's more than one way to get there. So it's not like you have to, master the stock market. It's not like you have to be some real estate tycoon. There are ways that you can use your creativity. There are ways that you can follow some sound financial practices and still get there and be able to enjoy yourself and enjoy the ride while you get there. Um, I love it. I was so happy when you said that. I was like, yes, just, we do not. It's many wonderful things to having a job and having that sustainability. But know what you're moving towards and how you're moving towards it, and what the sacrifices are you're having to make. And putting that all together. Okay, so as we wrap up, last but not least, we want to make sure, because I'm sure after this little tidbit, this little tasting that you all had of meeting Laura today and learning about the rich and resilient lifestyle, you all will want to know more. So let's make sure, last question, how can people find you? What do you have coming up soon? What can they get involved in if they want to support you?
Great, thank you. So my website is richandresilientliving.com, and I am on Instagram and TikTok as well at rich_resilient. I also have a new YouTube channel that is my name, Laura Oldanie, Oldanie. So those are different ways you can find me. I did recently co-write a book that talks a lot about what we've been talking about here. It's called Growing Free, Financially Resilient and Economically Empowered, Building the Life of Your Dreams Without Losing Your Soul or Destroying the Planet. So, if you're intrigued by what I said, it's a 400+ page book. It's pretty like a textbook, but a very engaging textbook to, help you design a rich and resilient life outside of the rat race. So that's an option. And we have turned this book into a course, a 3-month course that will be launching on April 24th. So that's only a few days after this will air, but we'll have information about that. You can find it on my website, or maybe it'll be in the YouTube description, video description as well. And, even if you don't catch it this time, you can keep an eye out for it when we repeat it next year.
Yes, thank you for making sure you gave multiple options for people to find you and follow you. The all of those details will be below in the descriptions so that people can make it even easier, just in case someone didn't have time to write it down. The links will all be included in the captions. Thank you so much for joining today, Laura. I appreciate it. Thank you for this special Earth Day episode. And we appreciate you being here, and continue to do great things in the world and in the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. You continue to do great things too. You're a beautiful soul.
Thank you.